The Truth Girls.
Hi everyone, so this is a follow-up to a video I did a couple years ago which was called Our Son is Autistic, Subtle Signs We Missed, which was basically about how he ended up getting diagnosed with a kind of high-functioning autism spectrum disorder, and the take-home message of that video was basically that you don't have to have all the signs of ASD to have ASD, and don't be afraid to get evaluated and to get help because you're probably going to need it. So this is a follow-up to let you know how things are going now. He's 9, so it's a few years down the road. I have notes here so I don't ramble too much. Okay, so here's an update. So number 1, he does not look autistic. Now, I know this is like an annoying expression that people use, but I want to bring it up because I think some people expect that someone who has an ASD is going to have some kind of outward, really obvious signs like constant hand flapping or like a really robotic voice or a total lack of facial expressions. Something like that that's going to flag them. You're going to be like, oh, that kid's definitely autistic. When actually, most of the time, there isn't something like that. And in the case of my son, there isn't. He looks pretty, pretty normal, I guess, if I could use that word. He looks like a normal child who just doesn't act right, as in on the level of social interaction and communication and a delay in terms of independent self-sufficiency. So basically, he just looks like a normal kid that is just not acting right. And like, wow, I must be a terrible mother. How could I let him act like that? I'm laughing because, I don't let him. That's just the way he is. Okay, so speaking of normal, he is normal. I just want to make the point that just because someone has an ASD, it doesn't mean they're not a normal person. As in, it doesn't mean that they don't have a brain in their head, or that they're crazy, or that they don't want friends, they're antisocial, or that they don't have feelings or whatever. A person with an ASD is a normal person who has an autism spectrum disorder. All right, now as far as the red flags go that I addressed in the previous video, the red flags that you are trained to look for in your baby, they change. The things that you'll see the babies do doesn't mean that your kid's going to be doing that at 7 or 8 or 9. I'll give you one example. That when my son was younger, he lined things up quite a bit. Not all the time, but he did do it. He pretty much doesn't line things up anymore. Oh, and as for red flags, another thing I want to mention was, like, in the other video, I did show a picture of him, like, crawling into a cupboard. He's not crawling into cupboards anymore. A couple times he's tried to go under the coffee table, or he'll go, like, under chairs at church or somewhere, but he's just too big. He doesn't fit in the cupboard anymore. And as for playing with water, still when I take him out and ask him to wash his hands, I'll have to remind him, okay, like, you're here to wash your hands, not to play with it, because he gets distracted by it. But it's not like before. Like, he doesn't flood my sink anymore. He doesn't like play with the taps. Not like before. Here's a little piece of footage I want you to see regarding red flags in a 9-year-old. First of all, he wants his dad's attention to something, but he doesn't really use words to communicate, just sort of grabs him. It's like the equivalent of grabbing you by your hand and just pulling you. Okay, he wants his dad to see the bugs. He's pointing, okay? This is what you're gonna notice is that he'll point, but he doesn't look back ever to check dad's reaction. Usually, typically developing children are constantly monitoring the reactions of the people they're interacting with. So he's pointing all the time. He very much wants to show his dad the bugs. He's having a good time. He's not looking to see at all how dad's reacting to any of this. The pointing and looking back is a very important part of joint attention, and this is something that is noticeably absent in children with ASDs. It may seem like a small thing, but it shows that there is something very different about the way he processes during social interactions. Okay, there are degrees in the development of play, which starts with exploratory play, which is what babies do. Then it goes into parallel play, and then more imaginative play, and then eventually becomes rich play, which is where they're thoroughly immersed in a fantasy, an imaginative scenario. They take on roles, and it's also flexible and can involve other people, like flexibly involving other people in imaginative play. Okay, my son is still not there. He's still not doing that. However, there's been some development in that area.
Egomaniac of God! Egomaniac of God! Heavy a vlog! Heavy egomaniac of God!
Heavy?
Heavy jump over fish! Dumb, stupid fish! Ah! Heavy angry! Take this as throat!
So mostly his play has built on things that he's seen in movies or videos, but it's not limited to just repeating script. It's imaginative play, although it came from inspiration from those kind of things, but it branches out from there. It's become more elaborate. He still prefers what you call exploratory play, but think parkour, something like that, not like sitting around sticking blocks in his mouth. Okay, on the social end, things have improved. Conversations don't exactly flow like they do with most people. I mean, usually I'm able to have like one or maybe two conversations with him where I feel like we're really talking back and forth. But a lot of the time he's just sort of going on about whatever is in his head, like his own preoccupations, or repeating stuff that he'd seen in a movie, or trying to make me act something out, or just whatever. But it's sort of like halfway normal. What I mean by that is that he's not antisocial. He likes to interact with people, but he lacks social reciprocity. It just doesn't really flow like it does with other children. You might divert it into something that's a bit odd, or he might not want to respond at all, you know. But like I say, sort of halfway normal. Friendships. He still has problems. He did sort of make some friends, but there's like a bit of a limitation there, you know. He hasn't made any like real good close friends. He did when he was in the day program, but unfortunately we just don't see them very much. But see, in that environment, which was really supportive, he did make friends. Outside of that, like in his regular school or camp, I think it takes him a while. Well, he has some difficulty with that. Also, he doesn't always know when people are being mean versus playing with him. So some kids that were sort of bullying him, he just kind of thought they were his friends. It's not always clear. I almost forgot. I want to tell you, okay, if there's one thing that he still does that is really related to ASD, that is chronic, he chronically doesn't respond when you talk to him. I mean, he'll respond if he wants to, but it really depends. Okay, well, look, I gotta get back to work. Will you let me know when you're gonna go give the bunny some food? Mo has nothing. He has no food right now. No food at all.
Giants in Ireland and giants in...
Connor. A lot of times it's like he's kind of tuned out. I know it can be frustrating and people take it as like he's being oppositional, but he's not. I think it's just a problem of like shifting his attention. Or maybe sometimes he kind of answers in his head and he thinks that I heard him, but I don't know. But let's just say though, that's an ongoing thing and it's kind of hard for me to deal with. He still can't get himself organized for beans, like whatsoever, which is more of like an ADHD type problem, but a lot of people with ASD have that problem. What I do to help him with this is I just draw out a cartoon, like here you go. Or if I want him to do a task like water the plants or whatever, I could just keep nagging, but it's better I just draw it out and I hand it to him and then he'll do it, which really goes to show that the willingness is all there. None of this is willful disobedience. It's all got to do with processing, executive function, that kind of thing. He still is not at the level of like independence and self-care of children his age. It takes a lot of coaching to get him through basically all the things that usually at this age kids will do, like getting dressed and, you know, various aspects of personal hygiene and grooming and self-care and things like that. You know, on the other hand, he does some things that I think not most kids his age do. Like he's taken an interest in cooking, and with my coaching he'll get through making a chili and he'll choose the spices and he'll make a really good dinner. So, you know. Okay, on the academic end, he is near gifted at math. He was doing grade 6 math in grade 3 and grade 7 to 9 science in grade 4. Halfway through grade 2, they moved him up to grade 3. So he basically skipped a grade. He has difficulty with expressive language. He was diagnosed with expressive language learning disability. So writing is very hard. Even, expressing himself orally, something's difficult for him when it comes to really communicating, like getting his ideas across or summing something up or relaying information. He doesn't have any actual speech problems other than that he can't pronounce TH. It's hard to explain about the way he talks because sometimes it sounds really okay, but if you spend enough time talking to him, you see that something's not typical. Like either it's very mumbly or sometimes the grammar's a bit loopy. His vocabulary is really great, but yet, when you're talking to him and it's like, what are you trying to say? It's just something's not really good about the way he expresses himself. Although not all the time. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. He doesn't have like a robotic voice or anything like that, but he has this habit of talking in a weird voice a lot. I mean, so much that I sometimes think it's like I rarely hear his real voice, although it's there. I do recognize it when I hear it, and it sounds surprisingly a lot like his cousin. But a lot of the time he talks with like an accent or like a weird, like he'll talk with like a cartoon kind of voice, or he'll talk with an Irish accent, or just different things like that. It's still something that he does a lot, and I guess it's quite odd, it puts people off sometimes, or like what is he talking about, or why does he talk like that? It's not like he's just doing it on purpose to be annoying. I think there's some kind of problem there, like some kind of skill lacking. Maybe it's just kind of like he's using like a character, like a put-on character to cope with the social situation. I think it's kind of like that, except that these put-on characters are taken from like videos or stuff like that, or cartoons, and so maybe it's working for him, but it's really not working so well for the person he's interacting with. So what interventions did he have? He did spend 2 years in the hospital day program. Now he's in a regular school that's a little bit more flexible and supportive for special needs. Most of the problems that he has are not in the actual classroom, but in the unstructured times, like the playground or the lunchroom. Those are the times that are hard for him, and it's been hard for us to get him help during those times. Also, the school has been very resistant to using visuals, because when you have a kid like my son he speaks really well, it's really hard to understand why would he need visuals. Why would you have to like write him a list and show him the list, or show him pictures? He understands English. I'm gonna get to that. This is the reason. And this is something that we understand now about him, that under overload, he loses executive function. He can't think straight. And this can be brought on by transition, sensory overload, hunger, discomfort, unexpected changes, emotional overload, feeling misunderstood. And what happens here is it's like his brain kind of shuts down. He shuts down, communication shuts down, communication skills all but disappear. His judgment, his ability to make decisions are very much affected. So when he's in that kind of state, people think it's a discipline issue, and they tend to want to get in there and reason with him and make threats and promises. They don't understand that his brain is not working right at that time, and that's when it's important to use visuals. And because they're resistant to it, that creates some problems. I could give you an example of how I use visuals. Like I was trying to get him out of a pool the other day, and I could be like, Gunnar, come on, we have to go, you're getting hungry, we have to make dinner. If you don't get out of the pool, we won't come back, and all that stuff. And then I just realized, what am I doing this for? Clearly, he's not responding. So I'm gonna just draw a little cartoon. So I just drew out in a book, him in the pool, the timer, like time's up, him getting out, and then mom's happy, and then we come back next time. Versus he's in the pool, time's up, he doesn't get out, mom's not happy, we don't come back. I just showed him this thing and he got out of the pool. So, as for his behavior, he's still really bad with personal space. Sometimes he's hyper, sometimes he's withdrawn. But, a lot of the times he's okay. He's pretty good. Alright, now here's one last thing I really want to touch on. His sense of humor. He has a really great sense of humor. I think there's like this kind of myth that autistic people don't have a sense of humor, but that's not true. He totally has a sense of humor. And he uses this to connect with people. And this can mitigate social problems somewhat. Like people at school, they might think he's weird or he's hard to talk to or connect with, but he's really funny. So some people really like that, and that can be helpful. They like him because he's funny, and I encourage him to use this asset, and I teach him how to time it right, because he has a good sense of humor, but he doesn't always have the best timing. So I try to really explain. I'll even draw it out, like, here's a social situation, like you're in the class, this is not the time, or whatever. It's just he needs to know when is the time and the place, but I certainly don't want to discourage him because he has a natural talent for comedy. Like, think something like John Belushi or Chris Farley, like that kind of over-the-top physical comedy, like amazing eyebrow waving, and he's just such a ham, so I'm not going to discourage that. And here's an example where it's kind of helped him. Like, he has been bullied a lot, but it's gotten a little bit better, and he's not so sensitive. Like, when people come up to him and, like, they might say something mean, but he's not like, whoa, and start crying. He'll come back with your mama jokes, and he knows like 100 of them. So, that kind of gives him some street cred, so it kind of helps. So in closing, I just want to say, when you have a child that's diagnosed with ASD, people, when you tell them, people will be like, oh, either they'll be like, oh, he's going to be fine. I have a friend whose son is autistic, and, he works in a factory making boxes. Or I know someone who's autistic and now he goes to MIT. Or, some people might be like, oh, I'm really sorry, because they think it's a hopeless situation. But the fact is, you really just don't know which way it's going to go. And it's kind of like that with all people, isn't it? You never know. You could have someone who looks like they're full of potential, everything's great, and then, something goes wrong. So, I mean, it is a hurdle. Like, definitely they have, people who have ASD have more challenges, but you can't jump to the conclusion that it's going to be all good or it's going to be all bad. I would say my priority is to give him support and to try to protect his self-esteem. I think that children who have behavioral issues, not just ASD, but other things as well, they're really at risk of having their self-esteem crushed. And this is very, very dangerous, because some of those behavioral issues like ADD or ASD or whatever, they may get better over time. But your crushed self-esteem, those wounds can last a lifetime. So my goal is to get him through these years where his behavior is not so good, and have him come out on the other end feeling like he's an okay person, because it's really important. So that's my update. Oh, I had a timer, and wow, I talked so much. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. And, leave me your comments. Thanks for giving me a thumbs up. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.